This is Jason DeBoard with the Original Prop Blog, and yesterday was the Prop Store TV Treasures live auction featuring the Comisar Collection. And I had done a preview of this auction a couple of weeks ago, taking a look at the catalog and some of the items. And I did check in on this auction yesterday. I saw most of it. I was actually multitasking at my computer, so I had it running on my second computer, just because I was really curious to see how this auction would do, what the interest was in a strictly TV-based collection, with a lot of it being older material, I guess you could say, or material from really just spanning the decades. So, I try to be super candid with my opinions, regardless of, my relationships with people and companies in this art market. Prop Store is an advertiser on my website, and I know James Comisar very well. I watched this auction and I couldn't help but feel that it was, had kind of disappointing results, just to be honest. I mean, I try to be very fair with my criticisms of all auction houses, irregardless of, my personal feelings or opinions about the people behind them or their intentions. I mean, I think they put together a beautiful catalog. Like, it was super well laid out, beautiful photography, is really impressive. But I think there's maybe a couple reasons why this auction didn't do as well as they might have hoped. I think one of the factors, and I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, was probably there wasn't a lot of lead time to promote it. They just announced it, I don't know, maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, and then here it is. And it's also a very busy auction season. I just finished recording a look at the upcoming Profiles auctions, where they've got a 4-day Hollywood auction and an auction about I think it's Once Upon a Time Disney show, and then a Maryland auction, and then Julian's had an auction yesterday and Friday as well, and they had some other auctions leading up to it. So it just seems like it's sort of like auction overload seems to always happen kind of late November/December every year. So, there's just a lot of competition for customers. And I think part of it might be that it's all television. Part of it might be, some of it's more, I guess you could say, vintage television, which, you're kind of narrowing down your potential buyer pool, with just what the offerings are. I thought the auction ran really slow. It started at 10 a.m. and it finished, I think, close to 7 or at 7, which, what does that work out to? So there's 398 lots, 9 hours. Oops. #math. Let me start over again. 398 divided by 9. So that's like 44 lots an hour. And there was a ton of breaks. I don't want to be unkind, but I didn't think the auctioneer was a good fit for this auction. He had kind of a weird way to frame the auction overall. Like, he kept saying, let's see if we can sell this one. And it's like, talk about setting low expectations. It's like, and something would sell for $200 or $300 and he'd prompt people to applaud. So it had this vibe and momentum, like, this stuff's not selling. Like, I don't know. It's just really weird as a spectator. I wasn't involved, bidding or otherwise. So let's zoom in a little bit here. Let's just kind of zoom through, so many pieces. This is kind of the average lot was selling for, $400 to $500. This is kind of a snapshot of the auction. Maybe it's just a case that it was, it's not like this is Mulder's badge or something from the X-Files. It's like, some crime scene photos. So, a lot of it was just lower tiered material, I guess you could say. Scully's goggles with an estimate of $800 to $1,200 unsold. And that's a lot of what we saw, is that the estimates were high, or perceived to be high, I guess you could say. And there was an unstated reserve. And some pieces had some bids, but then they didn't meet the reserve and they went unsold. And, $61 unsold, almost $1,000, $2,000, $400 unsold, $2,000 unsold, $2,500, $4,000, $7,900. So you can kind of see, unsold, 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 unsold. And that just really hurts like the momentum of an auction, because you're watching and you're just feeling like, the stuff isn't selling, and it doesn't give you confidence to participate, because then you start questioning, well, are these estimates too high? So I think it's probably the high estimates are what hurt the auction the most. But most of the lots were in the hundreds of dollars or unsold, low thousands, unsold. The Elvira dress sold for almost $10,000. So that was a good sale. And her wig, $3,300. But, I remember Alien Nation. I actually watched Alien Nation when I was in, I guess, high school. But, is there a market for an Alien Nation milk carton for $600 to $800? I don't know. So unsold, 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 unsold. $335 unsold. Huge fan of V. That sold for $2,400. This outfit sold for $3,000. Stevens Army Ensemble, $2,300 is, I've owned V stuff in the past. That's a really low price for that, in my opinion, like for a full costume. That's a great piece. I think so I guess if you're a buyer, there were some good buys. Like I've owned one of these helmets before. That's probably about a fair price. Sequest, again, I remember these shows. Millennials aren't going to remember these shows because they weren't alive or were too young. So I guess it's kind of a narrow market is part of it. High estimates. They did a great job putting this auction together. The photography is beautiful. The descriptions are pretty good. I love the catalog. Like that's one of the nicest catalogs I've ever seen. Most of this stuff's like just in hundreds of dollars. I'm scanning through all this just because I want to get to the highlights. Something from Mork and Mindy. I mean, that's like a classic show. I don't know that these are that memorable of costumes, but $488. It cost more to make them. So, it's interesting because this auction does speak to the market for sort of 70s, 80s era television and 60s. Like this Mork's glove, kind of a practical light up effect, went unsold at $4,000 to $6,000. I don't know. That's kind of surprising to me. The egg-shaped spacecraft, $20,000 to $30,000. I mean, that's a high estimate. It's a big piece, so I think that's part of it. I mean, big in terms of size, but I don't know that people are dying to spend 20 to 30 grand on something that's gonna take up a lot of display space. I mean, that's again, you're kind of narrowing the market down, because not only is it sort of younger people aren't going to be as into it or even know what this is, but then you've got the display issue. I mean, that's a huge piece. Logan's Run for $2,100, $2,200. But the Logan's Run stuff relative overall did better than some of it. Planet of the Apes, Army Rifle unsold with $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. Costume, $5,000 to $7,000 estimate unsold. Another costume, $5,000 to $7,000 estimate unsold. This one did sell with the same estimate, $5,490. Incredible Hulk pants worn by Lou Ferrigno, $2,000 to $3,000 unsold. I don't know that $2,000 to $3,000 is actually a big ask for this. I mean, that's a pretty classic show. Anything Marvel's hot now. So this, I don't know. Like I said, I think part of it might be that there just wasn't enough lead up time to get awareness out there. And also, like I said, competition with other auction events going on. So that's 1/4 of the auction. So, it's generally like things in the hundreds of dollars. But again, like Lois and Clark newspaper, like, is that something people are going to get super excited about? I don't know. A lot of the stuff was kind of entry level. We have one of Dean Cain's costumes for $11,590. Howard Stern. Yeah, so I'm just, like, you can see there's just a lot of unsolds. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So the Pee Wee stuff, like, I actually thought some of this might actually do a little bit better. This is a whole Pee Wee's Playhouse character, and it only went for under $2,000, which was still below the estimate of $3,000 to $5,000. I wanted to get to the Star Trek and Batman stuff for sure, but you kind of get the idea. California Raisins. Like, I know James Comisar loves this stuff, like things from, those old classic commercials and things like that. How many people are out there that share the love of that stuff, that also collect props, and costumes? It's just a super narrow market. But the fact, when things go unsold, that to me means that the reserve was too high. Because if you really want to sell it and the buyers aren't there to support the reserve, then it's, it's kind of overpriced. But some of these prices are, that honestly, that's a pretty low estimate for a costume. I mean, I know it's sort of a later day Munster show from 87 to 91. But it's still a classic character, and $427. It just seems like a lot of it's just lack of interest or lack of awareness about the auction. Okay, so this was the big sale of the day, was the My Favorite Martian spaceship. It's a full-sized fiberglass spaceship, and this was sold to David Copperfield. The magician actually won this. They publicized that. So this sold for $97,600. I think that might just be the reserve plus the buyer's premium. I don't recollect if there was a underbidder on this. I think it might have just been purchased at the reserve. I think that was the highest. I might be wrong. I think that was the highest price realized of the day. So the Star Trek Klingon Disruptor, like this was a great piece from the original Star Trek series. It had an estimate of 30 to 50,000. The winning bid with buyer's premium was 48.8. I mean, I think that's kind of a win-win. I think that's a good price for what it is, but the fact that it's at the high estimate is good. So, I think that was a good result for, James Comisar and the buyer. So that's good. But, we've got some unsold results, throughout this whole Star Trek section. And, I've talked to some people that are, diehard Star Trek collectors of this material, and they felt, at least the ones that I talked to, they felt that the estimates were high for what the pieces were, which weren't like super iconic or recognizable. That was kind of the consensus. So, you kind of see the result of that here with a lot of unsolds. So just looking for the marquee pieces. I don't think I passed them yet. It's a lot of Star Trek material. Okay, so we had the Spock costume with the $20,000 to $30,000 estimate that went unsold. We had the Kirk one with the $40,000 to $60,000 estimate, which went unsold. Like that was one of the big pieces in the auction. We're going to get to the last page here. Yeah, so then we got into some Star Trek Next Generation stuff. This Jean-Luc Picard telescope actually went almost double the high estimate at $8,500, with the $3,000 to $5,000 estimate. So that one had good interest. So then we get into the Batman material. So the Bat respirator had a $5,000 to $7,000 estimate and sold for a little over 10. The Hero Antidote pillbox and pills had a $6,000 to $8,000 estimate and went for 12. So this level of Batman stuff seemed to do better, This Joker's grenade kit had $5,000 to $7,000 estimate, went for almost 11. And this Robin partial costume went almost at the low estimate. So this was one of the other really big marquee pieces of the auction, the Riddler costume, or really just suit, jacket, and vest with the $100,000 to $150,000 estimate. That went unsold. And then the top piece in the auction, which I kind of blew my mind on this estimate when I did my preview, the $400,000 to $600,000 estimate. This went unsold, which didn't surprise me. Like that, I thought that was an insane estimate. Then we've got some lost stuff, which, Profile sold a lot of this material when that series concluded. And, a lot of this went unsold or at or under $1,000. Then we've got Heroes stuff unsold, 6 Feet Under stuff, mostly unsold. True Blood stuff, almost all unsold. Nip Tuck, Sopranos, really low winning bids on this stuff are unsold. Boardwalk Empire, a lot of unsold. A lot of the stuff, it might be too new for nostalgia. And Sopranos, there's just a lot of costume material out there. This was one of the pieces that went over the estimate. The Breaking Bad packet of meth went for almost $5,000 with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. All the Breaking Bad stuff sold. And then Dexter, I knew this was a great piece. His stocking ensemble, $2,000 to $3,000 estimate went for a little over $7,000. The Dexter stuff did relatively well. I mean, most of it's within the estimate here. And some of that actually had low estimates. And then the ice block with the fingertips sold for a little over $5,000 with a $2,000 to $3,000 estimate. So anyway, usually I do my recaps in written form just on the profiles auctions generally, but I thought this was an important one to kind of take a look at. Just because it's all genre stuff, like it's all kind of within the wheelhouse of the original prop blog. And I know just among, my friends, there's a lot of interest in this, just more or less just to see how it does, because it is a little bit different because it's all television. And like I said, I'm not trying to be down on prop store James Comisar. I'm just trying to be consistent and honest about kind of covering the results of these auctions, because I think is important, because there's always all these auctions happening and then people kind of forget about them. So at least, like I said, one of the reasons why I wanted to start doing these YouTube videos was to be able to do these kind of quick reviews of auction results, because it's really difficult to do in written form. And so I just want to be, kind of equitable in terms of just looking at everything really fairly, regardless of who it is. But yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they do a follow-up auction. My sort of unsolicited advice would be to maybe put in some more kind of iconic higher end pieces, really lower the estimates, because I think the estimates probably drove away some people that otherwise might have participated, because I know that can be a turn off for people if they feel like things have high estimates. They just don't want to participate because they feel like it's, like I've said in past auctions, like that sort of jackpot estimate thing, like with that bat shield, you're looking basically for one bidder to kind of bid with the reserve price, and it's more like a buy it now. Some of this stuff, I mean, had low estimates, but it was sort of more entry level material that maybe wasn't enough to get people excited. Like, I think if there was more marquee pieces mixed in, then maybe they would buy a marquee piece and then want to fill in and make, a little collection of whatever show that's from, and would maybe pick up some of the smaller pieces. Yeah. So anyway, that's just my, like I said, unsolicited opinion. I think it would have done a little bit better with more lead time, lower estimates, and maybe just some more marquee pieces put in there. Again, with lower estimates, I think that would have brought more people in to participate. And yeah, I think the auctioneer kind of, I don't know. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, I just thought like the auction, the pacing of it and the vibe was just really slow and kind of offbeat and weird. And the fact that he prefaced like every lot with, let's see if we can sell this one, like, I don't know. It was just a strange auction for me. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on this auction. And like I said, I loved the catalog. I loved the presentation. I like the people involved. So if they do another one of these, I think they can learn from this and make it a more successful event in the future. But just wanted to share my candid thoughts about the auction and the auction results. And, I'll be doing these for future auctions that have like a lot of genre stuff like this one. Like, typically the profiles auctions have a lot of, sci-fi, action, fantasy, that kind of material that is what we tend to look at more on the original prop blog. So thanks for checking this out. And, that's it. Thanks.